This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, a.k.a. the Python Hyena, because I smile sternly. You know something, folks? I love doing the interviews, and boy, do I have an interesting guest on here. Some of you are going to remember him from that famous Christmas movie, and some of you are going to remember him as being really, really rebellious in the Postal zone. I like him either way. I want to introduce actor Zack Ward from A Christmas Story and Postal, among other things. Welcome, Zack.
Hey, nice to meet you, Python. This is fun.
Yeah.
On board.
Oh, yeah. You know what? It's interesting. I did not know your name until last week. And what I sat down at my computer and I interviewed Uwe Boll last year.
Yeah.
And I watched Postal for the first time. I had not seen an Uwe Boll film. I interviewed him based on something else, which I'll get to in a minute. But I watched Postal, and I sat there thinking to myself, this guy gets so many bad reviews for his movies, Uwe Boll does, and yet I thought Postal was so side-splittingly hilarious. And I was like, I was watching you in the film, because there was some stuff how you're being walked all over, and I was like, I can kind of relate to this guy somewhat. I'm like, I gotta see if I can get him on for an interview, and I looked you up online. I'm like, gee, I seen A Christmas Story. Like, he was the bully in that film. I'm like, boy, he's grown up. And I saw all these other films you were in. I was like, I have seen you before. I just didn't know your name.
Yeah, that's kind of typical. I'm that red-haired guy with the slanty eyes who was in that thing this one time. Yeah, I mean, I've been working for 37 years now. I've done over 100 films. I've had 4 TV series, and I'm still I'm recognizable, but rarely do people know my name. But it's fine. You know, it's the fact is people enjoy my work, and I enjoy working, so it's a good combination.
Well, normally I start at the beginning, but you know what? I'm going to start with Uwe Boll and Postal, because that's kind of where I really familiarized with you, and I loved your performance in Postal. But how I came by Uwe Boll is that I remember last year, and you'll probably recall this, he did a video where he was cursing out the Kickstarter situation. Do you recall that?
Yeah, he does things like that all the time.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of people were dissing him for it, but I found myself in agreement with him, because I remember after the Ice Bucket Challenge, I tried to help the Doubtfire Face Challenge, which was put together for suicide and depression in the wake of Robin Williams' death. And it regarded taking a pie in the face for suicide prevention. And I was trying desperately to get the film industry and music industry involved in that, because I thought, gee, if they could do this for ALS, think of what they could do for other charities, you know, as opposed to waking up in Twitter wars and all that crap that goes on in the media. I'm like, gee, it'd be great. We all come together and help these charities. So, and I remember there was a journalist in LA that I had on Twitter, and she had interviewed a lot of the people that I wanted to nominate. And I asked her, I said, if I nominate you, would you accept the challenge and, send this out? And she told me I would have to nominate her first. So I did this video, took the pie in the face, and nominated some people. And when I sent it out to her, she goes, great video, but I'm not taking a pie in the face. But great video, though. And I sat there thinking, you miserable little bitch. And she goes on the next week to interview Angelina Jolie, which this organization actually had nominated for this before. And And when I was pissed off at her, and I was like, wow. And this was a Christian organization, and I come from a Christian household. So for her to do this, well, basically they use religion for profit. I've come to find that out, although they won't admit that. So when I saw Uwe Boll do this video where he was like, trying to raise money to make his movie, and I remember he was cursing out the fact all these actors and whatnot were, and people were involved in Lord of the Rings and whatnot, and he couldn't get help with what he was doing. And there was something about that I was able to connect with. And I sent him a message. I said, Uwe, you got to come on my show because I'm with you. They can mock you all they want. I'm with you. And I got him on here, and I hadn't seen a single Uwe Boll film. And I had a great interview with him for about an hour. And he couldn't have been more pleasant with me. And I understood people just don't understand him, because I come to find out the reason he challenged people to boxing matches is because people were panning his films without seeing them. Yeah. And it's interesting because I knew what he felt. I knew what he was saying, because I don't know how many times I've read a review on Friday the 13th Part 3 where a critic will say another group of camp counselors being slaughtered. And I'm like, no, they were a group of college kids going on a weekend vacation. There were no camp counselors, so they didn't watch the film. So I understood what Uwe Boll was doing, and people completely were misrepresenting him and just making fun of him. So, and I had just the most pleasant interview with Uwe Boll, and he sent me an autographed picture in the mail, and he couldn't have been happier with me, and I couldn't have been happier with him. So when I saw Postal, I was like, man, he is a better filmmaker than Michael Bay by far. And I thought Postal was more than just a video game movie. It actually really was making fun of something. Do you think I hit the nail?
Say that again?
Would you say I said that accurately, that it was a great satire?
Yeah, I think I think Postal was a film that definitely wanted to prod the beast that is modern society and make it look at itself and finally stop being so politically correct, maybe crack a joke, and see all the connections that actually occur behind the closed doors. I mean, that's the thing I like about the film is the opening is sacrilegious to the extreme, and the ending with George Bush and Osama bin Laden holding hands and skipping through a field. I mean, the statement's obvious is that the system is set up by those in power in order to control the 99% of the rest of us so that they have the money, and we do have our little jobs.
Yeah.
And we keep our heads down because there's not enough money to get ahead and actually relax, so we're constantly working, just trudging through life to feed ourselves and try and survive. And meanwhile, we're the cattle who are keeping them in their white castles by not revolting. Because if we did, we would win. But everybody's too busy, and now they're watching movies on TV and they're Twittering, and there's nothing that joins people together anymore. So yeah, I thought the film was a great statement about society as a whole, and I think that's the responsibility of comedy, is to mock the status quo.
And yeah, and that's what I thought with the challenge. When I did the Doubtfire challenge, I thought, hey, gee, the ALS brought everybody together. Let's keep doing this and see what we could do with all these diseases and illnesses and make a difference.
Man. The problem is that this isn't the 60s where, or even the 70s or the 80s. When I went to go see Star Wars in the theaters, it was in the theaters for 9 months. Yeah. There was nothing on TV. And TV stopped operating at 11:30 at night and told you to go to bed with that big symbol, the thing with the Indian head on it, black and white, with the countdown leaderboard going, all right, this is the end of our programming night. Go to bed, dum-dum, wake up and get back to work. Nowadays, I mean, you have content 24/7. You're awash in a sea of crap, and you don't really focus on any one thing. I think that's the reason why no single musical value connects everybody like the Beatles in the 60s did. Not that I was alive then, but we all remember how that was a giant zeitgeist that connected the country. And we repelled the Vietnam War and got us out of that shit show earlier. than we would have been if we hadn't stood up for what we believed in. But there's not that connective tissue anymore. I mean, you've got so many people so distracted by a million things that studios and companies are spending a lot of cash to ensure that they are distracted, so that they're buying the new flavored sugar water or seeing the new crappy Ninja Turtles movie that bombed at the theaters this weekend. That's our focus. We're consumers now. So we don't really get brought together on stuff anymore unless it feeds into our consumerism. And the ALS challenge, I think, was cute and sweet, and I honestly don't know how much money it raised. I know that all the celebrities got attention for doing it, but I don't know how effective it was financially.
Well, you know something?
Really, don't waste the water, just write a check.
Yeah.
But I think what happened is people just got bored.
Well, I did the Doubtfire challenge, and I sent that out because I was battling depression, and I actually had one of my interviewees, Lisa Langlois, actually did the challenge, and I so appreciated her doing that, and I actually donated to one of her charities as to show my gratitude. But I thought it was interesting when I originally did the challenge. The big news thing on the media the following day was Donald Trump and Russell Brand are in a Twitter feud. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is what's making the news, this crap?
Yeah. Because Russell Brand and Donald Trump are more famous than you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality. That's the reality with anything that you have to keep on pushing. I've been in over 100 films, and you don't know my name.
I know your name now.
Right.
Postal brought that out.
I just know that there's not enough time to know everything at all times. I mean, my film came out, Restoration, and it was launched on iTunes and VOD, and we were in the top 10 of iTunes for a month. And the movies we were beside were $15 million films. Their P&A budgets were probably $20 million. They were spending $1 million on their social media, and they were number 3, we were number 6. That's insane. And that was done by constant Twittering, constant Facebook, getting people to look at the movie, watch it, write reviews. Our reviews are now 4 out of 5 stars on iTunes, 4 out of 5 on Amazon. That's incredible. But it takes every day. I mean, I've been reaching out to people 3 hours a day for a month and a half. It's exhausting. It's annoying, but you can't just put out one Twitter feed and expect people to respond. I've got 64,000 followers on Twitter. I'm going direct messaging to every single one I can. That's a lot of people, dude. That's a lot of time. But I'm trying to get my message out there. See my movie. I wrote, produced, directed, edited, and acted in the film. Our budget was probably lower than the catering budget on those $15 million movies.
What's your movie called?
It's called Restoration.
Okay. What's this film about? Give it a plug.
Restoration is a story about Todd and Rebecca Jordan.
Okay.
They moved to a new small town where Rebecca is starting to do her, what is it? I always forget this. What do they do when doctors go to a new place? You don't have to edit this part out. It's called residence. There we go. So let me start again. Restoration is a story of Todd and Rebecca Jordan moving to a small town so that Rebecca can go to the hospital to do her residence. Her husband, Todd, is a general contractor. They buy an old house and they move in, and he starts renovating it in order to show the local people what his skill sets are and also to create a home for the two of them. When he opens up a wall, inside of it is a diary that's been hidden for the last 35 years. When they open the diary, they release the ghost of a little girl. And they have to find out who killed her and where she's buried. The mystery evolves from there.
Now, I don't know why people wouldn't want to go to the theater to see that.
It didn't come out in theaters.
Yeah, but again, like, why wouldn't people want to go to the theaters to see it? Because to me it sounds enticing.
It's good, actually. Thank you. And it's got really good reviews, but it's a lower budget film, so we don't have huge names in the movie. And if you don't have huge names in the movie, and you don't have millions upon millions of dollars to spend in order to get advertising dollars, people to be aware of it, well, then it's not really making any sense to spend the money for it to be in a theater, because it costs you money. It's not a freebie. You understand? So
Yeah.
you have to make your decision as to, in the film industry, what's your best profit margin. And it is an art form, and I believe the art form is the balance between commerce and art. How do you take care of your investors? How do you take care of your audience? You have to generate something good and original and heartfelt and meaningful for your audience, and you need to do it at a price point where you can get the money back that your investors put up for the film. Because you have to show respect for their money. You have to show respect for the audience's money.
And you know what?
So going to theaters really didn't make any sense at the budget that we're at. And nowadays, like you're going to go to a theater to see a movie, unless it's one of those giant tent poles, like Captain America Civil War, or these humongous movies. Yeah, it's a lot of money, and each person spending, here in LA, you're spending anywhere from $12 to $20 a ticket, not including food and parking and the kids, or if you have a babysitter. Whereas you can stay at home, go to iTunes, look up Restoration, go on video on demand, go to DirecTV, go to Hulu. You can just click a button and you can rent it for $4. And all of a sudden you're watching a great movie, and if you have to pee, you can press pause.
Well, you know what's interesting, because a lot of the big budget films we have up at our theater, I haven't seen. But you know what? People were giving me the oddest looks at the theater, because I went and saw Everybody Wants Some, the new Richard Linklater film. I went and saw that 9 times. Now, if I
haven't seen it yet.
I loved it, and it was one of those films that came in under the radar. But yet, if I had have seen the new Alice in Wonderland 9 times, nobody would bat an eye. I haven't seen that yet, if I'll see it at all. But
yeah, I have no interest in seeing Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, that, and I haven't seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and
yep, not going to see that either, and not going to see. I mean, the new X-Men movie.
Haven't seen that either.
I just stopped caring. And I was a huge comic book nerd, but I just don't care anymore. After Star Wars, the new Star Wars came out, and it was such a turd. I was just like, I can't. And now I'm starting to sound like that old guy. Back in my day, the movies were made to be good movies, not a franchise.
You didn't like the new Star Wars?
No, it's crap. It was absolute garbage. Go look at here's the difference. I'm happy to debate this with anybody.
Okay.
The first Star Wars was a movie. It wasn't a franchise.
And it was a great movie, too.
It was a great frickin' movie, man. And if you look at, there's a thing online you can find called the unspecialized version of Star Wars. And this dude, he collected all the different versions of the original Star Wars that were released. And then he took out all the CGI crap stuff that Lucas put in for that other edition that he put out. And he brought it back, he got all the extra clips from the laser disc and the European version and all the stuff, and he edited it all together, and it's all beautifully digitally remastered to look like the original print. And it is stunning. It is awesome. And the key is, it's a real movie. It's a real story. Like when you write a film, you've got these different character arcs, and you start off with the orphan, the wanderer, the warrior, the martyr, the hero. That is the standard arc. Especially if you're on a campus ground, anybody who's doing writing should understand and listen to this. The orphan, the wanderer, the warrior, the martyr, the hero. That's what you do. Okay. In the original Star Wars, we meet Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
He's got his aunts, his uncle. He goes to town. He comes back. His aunts and uncle are burned to death. They are dead, beyond dead. Their bodies are being prodded by stormtroopers, and there's nothing but smoldering remains of these people who we thought were lead characters of this film. People that Luke cared for. Basically, his mom and dad are burnt to death. Okay, that's motivational. We know what the stakes are. Now we care. In the new movie, we meet Guy 1 and other Guy 2, that I believe there's some backstory on that if you're a super Star Wars nerd, you know. But realistically, if you're coming into a movie, you don't know or give a flying F. And they sit there and they talk about Yiger Jagger, and then the stormtroopers come down and start shooting people off in the distance with blue lasers. People I don't know. I've never been introduced to. I don't care about them. Human beings don't care about extras in the background.
I agree.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't give an F. So now we have a movie with no stakes. We have a movie that is in a big slaughterhouse killing scene. Nobody gets killed or hurt. Not in front of us. Not a single person. And I realized what what Disney was doing with Star Wars when I saw it the second time on a flight, because I had no choice, and I fell asleep to it. They're doing exactly what they did with Cinderella, with Sleeping Beauty, with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, with all those Grimm's fairy tales. They're making content that is generic enough that you can plop a 4-year-old in front of it, walk into the other room and do your taxes or your dishes, and not worry about your child having an opinion, having any night terrors, having a soul. You can make generic content flashy and shiny enough with no real heart or soul so that 4-year-old grows up to be a 30-year-old putting their 4-year-old in front of the same goddamn show. So they don't give an F about the content. They care about just blinding the morons with shiny keys. And now that Disney owns Star Wars, owns Marvel, owns the Muppets, it is a massive conspiracy of shit.
I get your point.
So I can't see it anymore without having to punch myself in the face, because it's always the same crap. And it hurts my feelings, man. I grew up as a raging comic book nerd. I was at Comic-Con debating with Rosario Dawson who would kick the crap out of each other, Superman or the Hulk. I was that guy. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm out. The comic books that used to be on the edge and make a comment about society and be our internal id identification about who we wanted to be, they're gone. Now it's a freaking ride at Disneyland. I'm out.
Yeah.
I can't see that shit anymore.
It's interesting. You're about a year older than I am. And I saw all 3 of the original Star Wars movies at the drive-in theater. We don't have drive-ins here anymore. But I was 5 years old when Star Wars A New Hope came out. And did you see those when they were originally in theaters?
Yeah. I saw the first Star Wars 9 times in theaters when I was a kid, over the same summer.
Wow. And
my grandparents were drunks and they hated me, so when they wanted to go get hammered during the middle of the day and go golfing, they dropped me off at the local mall and I'd go see a movie.
Okay. And you saw some great stuff.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful to my drunk, dead grandparents.
Yeah. But you know what? It's interesting. You mentioned plopping a 4-year-old in front of the movies, and I find too, and I've even had this mentioned to me by other guests I've had on here for interviews. It's getting to the point where adults can't go to a movie unless they have kids, and I don't have kids, don't want kids, and like I said, I was
I'm right there with you.
Huh?
I said I'm right there with you. I don't have kids, not having kids, don't want children.
You got bullshit. Companies like Movie Guide there in California trying to get the old production code back so they can force their bias on everybody, and I can't stand them. But they'll recommend junk like Fireproof because, you know, it's garbage. But
Fireproof?
Fireproof, that Kirk Cameron movie.
No, I don't know anything about this.
Trust me, you don't need to. But like I said, I saw Everybody Wants Some 9 times. And I don't know whether there's anybody seen it as many times as I did, but nobody would have batted an eye if I saw one of those millions and millions of dollar productions. And the reason I went and saw Everybody Wants Some, because it was Richard Linklater, very well written, and it had that nostalgia 80s music in it, and it just took me back.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I loved what he did with Dazed and Confused. I haven't seen Everybody Wants Them yet, but I definitely want to.
Oh, I saw it 9 times. Before this, the most I've seen a movie in the theater was 5 times. Like I've seen The Exorcist 5 times in theaters. I've seen E.T. 5 times in theaters. And you mentioned Rosario Dawson. I saw Clerks 2 5 times in theaters. But that record got broken with Everybody Wants Some. I couldn't get enough of that. And we only had that for 2 weeks. And I said to the people at the theater, I said, if you guys still had that, I'd still be going to see it.
Well, that is high praise. I will definitely check it out, and hopefully you will check out my movie, Restoration, because that is my plug, baby. I wrote, produced, directed, edited, and acted in the damn thing. And it's my first directorial debut for a feature. I've done shorts and spec pilots, but this is the first feature I've done. So I'm hoping that people will like it. So please.
Who else is in Restoration?
Check it out. And also hit me up on, if people watch it and want to comment, by all means, hit me up. My Twitter is @Total Zack Ward. My Instagram is the same. My Twitter is verified, so you know that you got actually me. And then there's also a Facebook page that's verified as well, Zack Ward, and they can tell me what they thought of the movie. So I'll finish pitching on that, but hopefully people take a look.
Yeah, Restoration, yes, it actually sounds like a great concept. Sounds certainly a better concept than the crap that's playing at the theater, I'll tell you that.
Well, fingers crossed, hopefully you like it then. And my girlfriend named the movie, so I'm very proud of her.
Wow. Who's all in the movie? Are you starring in it too?
No, I don't star in it, but I'm in it. But it's Emily O'Brien, Adrian Gaeta, Sarah Ann Schultz, Keith Jardine, and myself.
Okay.
There's not a lot of. That's the thing is, there's not a lot of big names.
Well, you know
if we
what?
had bigger names, we could have gotten into more theaters. It would have cost a lot more money.
But you know what?
We did what we could with what we have, and people really like the movie.
If you used to see the list of the people I have interviewed, like I said, you're number 36. If you used to see the list of the people I interviewed, I haven't interviewed a lot of big names, but I've interviewed people who are recognized in cult films.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like Freddy versus Jason, that type of thing.
Exactly. Well, I've had Tommy Wiseau on here. I've had Adrienne Barbeau. I've had Lisa Langlois. I've had Dee Wallace. And
you want to ask me questions about any other movies or projects?
I'm going to ask you about all kinds of movies, but I want to finish with finish what I started with Postal, though.
Okay.
Because Postal, just like I said, you made an impression on me. I was captured in that movie, my attention within the first 5 minutes when you got the 2 terrorists in the plane talking about the the virgins. I thought that was brilliant.
Well, and also look at the environment now. No one can make a joke about Islam or Muslims. They're like the least funny people in the universe because if you make a joke, one of their buddies will blow up your effing house.
Well, look at the interview.
It's got to be. It's funny because I'm originally from Canada, right?
Yes, same here. Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah.
And I was just in Toronto to see my mom. But my mom is actually in the movie Restoration as well. By the way, she's 79 years old. I just turned 80, and she killed it. She's amazing. Her name's Pam Hyatt. She's used to be quite the big deal in the 60s.
Okay.
So I'm in Toronto talking to my mom for her birthday. We have a big party, and my cousin is there from New York, and we're talking about he's talking about what goes on in the United States with the Muslim interaction, the terrorist value interaction. And my mom, like almost all Canadians, is very open, very like, oh, let's not judge everybody, let's be very kind. And I get it. I'm from Toronto. And in Toronto, you have a different energy. And when you're over in California and people go into buildings to start shooting everybody, or when you're in New York City and things get blown the F up, your attitude towards it changes. And, the thing I like about that movie is it's mocking not the religion, but the jackasses, the extreme nut jobs who deserve to be mocked. And I love that about Uwe, that he had the balls to do that. Whereas you look at the environment in the United States now, they'd be terrified to say anything.
Yeah.
since a cartoonist drew a picture
Yeah.
of Muhammad, and then you can bleep me on this, but those fuckwits went in and shot people. I'm sorry, dude.
That's okay.
But,
Yeah.
there's a level. Well, I'm not apologizing for swearing. I'm apologizing for just being aghast at the behavior of douchebags and watching them create a texture of fear that saturates an entire country, if not continents, just out of fear of these little animals that scurry around holding up this idea of hatred. That drives me bananas. So I hugely respect Uwe for doing what he did, because no one nowadays would do it.
Oh, absolutely not. And it was certainly better than Pearl Harbor. That's what I call an offensive movie that Michael Bay made. I think Uwe took a chance, and very funny movie. There were some great scenes in that movie. Like I loved, for example, your job interview scene when you're on that chair that just doesn't want to stay. That's some great comic stuff.
Thanks. Thank you.
In the scene where there's a shootout at that place, and you're crawling around the floor trying to get that closest number.
Yeah, at the post office, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the crotchy dolls.
Yeah, if anybody out there hasn't seen this, you will have no idea what he's talking about, but it's pretty funny. I'm not sure you can find crotchy dolls anywhere else except Postal.
Now, I don't play video games, but my younger brother has played the video games, and he had mentioned to me that originally, before his death, Gary Coleman was involved in that, and of course now they have Vern Troyer from the Austin Powers movies, known as Mini-Me.
Yeah, Vern Troyer was in the video game, and Gary Coleman was in the video game, and sadly he passed, and Vern Troyer came in.
Yeah. Was Gary Coleman originally supposed to be in the movie, or was that not thought of for a movie?
I think he had passed too long ago before the film was set up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember when
Could you hold on 2 seconds, brother?
Sure.
Thanks. Hello?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
So, yeah, he was, I think the film, I can't remember exactly when Gary Coleman died, but I believe that he died prior enough to the movie being made that it was never a consideration to have him in the film. But I may be wrong. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know that Postal's going to celebrate its 10th anniversary next year, and
the movie is still, I guess it would be, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I looked that up after I had get done watching it, and it got a lot of bad reviews, and yet I'm also a movie critic, and I would praise it. I loved it.
It's funny, it got some bad reviews, and I'll be honest with you. I think there's moments in that film that could be better. Having known what we shot, having been there when we shot it, and seeing choices I would have made differently in editing. But I think it's an audacious attempt at satire, and I think he went really big with it, which I respect that. What else? Variety reviewed the film and said it's one of the best films it's the best film Uwe has ever done when it came out. And although crazy over the top, they liked my performance. So, I don't think Postal is for everyone, but it's definitely a movie that I'm glad I got to be part of, and I'm glad I got to make.
Yeah, and you get to work with Dave Foley in it, too, and I love that scene where he's on the toilet. He just gets up and just see this puddle beneath him, brown puddle.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, what was he like to work with?
He's a sweetheart, great guy. I've known him since I was about 15 years old, back in Toronto. Kids in the Hall started off in the back room of the Rivoli restaurant nightclub on Queen Street West. And my brother was the for the back room. So I got to meet all these guys when I was a little kid. And then working again with Scott was super easy. Dave, sorry. Dave Foley was fun and simple and great guy. sweet Tommy. Really fun to work with.
Yeah, another person you worked with was Jackie Ton, and I actually heard from her this week, too. She agreed to come on here for an interview. I just got to get her booked, but I thought it was interesting. I got two of you from that movie for 1 week, and hopefully I'll hear back from her soon, but she's definitely enthusiastic about it. But I loved her scene when she's in the coffee shop, and this guy just can't make up his order, and she just snaps at him, and I'm like, I've seen people at, whether it's coffee shops or wherever, just, they just want to say what she said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole voice of Postal, is to express what is usually repressed.
Yeah. But no, that movie was fantastic, and I love the fact that they were mocking George W. Bush, because I remember after 9/11, I understand that he was critical of Canada, and I didn't appreciate that. And,
George Bush is a dumbass, so
yeah.
call it what it is. I mean, that's one of the dumbest people I've ever heard of in my life. One of my favorite quotes from him was talking about Al-Qaeda. He said, "You have to understand that Al-Qaeda has no disregard for human life." And I have a semester and a half at community college, and I know that's a double negative. And here's a guy running the effing country who doesn't know what a double negative is. So he just said Al-Qaeda has regard for human life. And that's, again, a fuckwit. So, yeah, believe that, please. But, my God, dude, that was the president of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, arguably. And just, he's an idiot.
Well,
I wouldn't let him fill up my tax forms.
No. Well, from what I understand it, and don't quote me on this, but apparently he was critical of Canada because I think it was Jean Chrétien refused to go to war. And I'm like, wasn't this thing over oil? Wasn't this something that he started? Was I don't know.
No, it was. I mean, the United States went in to go during Desert Storm to save, who's not Osama bin Laden, who's the other guy that they caught?
Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, Saddam Hussein. They're going to liberate this country. Was it Iraq? Whichever one it was.
Oh.
But the problem was that country wasn't a democracy, it was a monarchy. So the democratic nation of the United States of America that supports democracy, that's its foreign, what's the word I'm looking for? Not foreign affairs, foreign issues, not foreign
policy?
Diplomacy?
Or something.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Don't know.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Look like an idiot. The foreign. Anyways, the United States of America, a democratic nation, flew hundreds of thousands of people to the middle of the Middle East in order to fight for a monarchy. Do you understand that? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's a monarchy. There's one king. It's like Mordor over there, and we're going to go help out Sauron. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And it's because they had all the oil, and then they're pretending that we're fighting for democracy. Well, we're fighting against democracy for a monarchy. It's ridiculous. So, of course, George Bush was angry at anybody who disagreed with him because he's trying to use social pressure to get what he wants, although he was always full of shit, and he knew he was full of shit.
Well, a lot of people have said it was, Dick Cheney practically running the country.
Well, we all knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the emperor behind Darth Vader.
Yeah. But no, I loved Postal. I loved the message behind it, and I would praise Uwe Boll up and down for this movie. Even his cameo was funny. And I thought you were great in it. Like I said, it made me want to reach out to you for an interview. It's like you were just the guy that was fed up. Even the stuff with the trailer and your wife and stuff, it kind of reminded me a lot of a John Waters film in that manner.
Yeah, that's a good association.
Yeah. But before you became known, of course, maybe first recognized, you did A Christmas Story. And man, that's a great, great movie. And you, of course, played the bully in the film. What was your experience like with that and working with Peter Billingsley?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Great. It was like being at summer camp during the winter. It was so much fun. We shot in Cleveland, lots of snow, really cold. I hung out with Yano and Naya most of the time. Yano and Naya played Grover Dill, the other bully. We were kind of separated from Peter and the rest of the kids because the director, Bob Clark, wanted us to create sort of our own factions as opposed to everybody getting along perfectly well. He wanted to create a more realistic dynamic.
Okay, I get that.
It was awesome. I mean, Bob Clark, Gene Shepard. So Gene Shepard wrote the script. Bob Clark directed it. I mean, it's an amazing experience to be part of something that's lightning in a bottle. So, very blessed and very happy to have that opportunity.
And you could see like Christmas ornaments of the lamp lag. You can find those and like the tongue on the pole, and you got like the stuff with the fern. There was just so many great little elements in that film that stood out, but yet in a way a lot of people can relate to what's going on. Like even the subplot with the BB gun. Yes, it's a dangerous toy to have, but yet, you know, you can kind of relate to the enthusiasm behind it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why it's so successful 34 years later. It really is an amazingly perfect film.
Yeah, and Bob Clark directed that, and of course, Bob Clark also from Canada. He made Black Christmas, which was an even darker Christmas film, and I love Black Christmas. And you know, he made A Christmas Story, and he made Porky's, and I feel bad he made the Baby Geniuses films. You know, I wasn't a fan of those, but I felt bad though to hear about his the passing in that car accident. But what was he like as a director?
He was a sweet, sweet man. He was calm, focused, friendly. He was like the ultimate uncle, especially for me being a 13-year-old little boy.
You were 13 in that film, huh?
Yeah.
How old was Peter in that film?
Maybe 10, 11.
Well, not that much younger than you, although he looked a lot more youthful.
Well, he's short.
I guess, yeah, well, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like that film plays like every year Christmas time. It's like one of those great Christmas classics. And do you watch that every year, or are you like you? Huh?
I don't. I do not.
You do you not? I do not. You not watch yourself?
Movie every year. No. Because I go around the country and I raise money for charities, signing autographs for A Christmas Story. So okay. I get to meet people who tell me their experiences with the film, how they watch it every year, with their grandparents, their kids, their wives, their babies. And so I get to experience it through that. For me to watch myself in a movie repeatedly is narcissistic and depressing.
Okay. Well, I certainly had a good time. I remember when I first saw it, it was a special screening of it up at the mall, and I attended it. And like I said, the word I would use to describe it is detailed. It wasn't traditional. It had very realistic flair to it with a great touch of satire. But I love the detail of just the little things you come out, like the lamp lag and stuff like that just kind of stand out, that they could have been left out of the movie, but the fact that they were included in it added to the sensation of the film.
There was originally a book called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, written by Gene Shepard. And Gene Shepard, a long time ago in the 40s, 50s, he was on the radio telling stories, kind of like the Voice of America.
Okay.
And, he was very much beloved. So he had all these stories that he would tell about his youth and about growing up in Indiana, and he put them into his book, in a compilation and anthology. And Bob Clark fell in love with Gene Shepard's voice and the way he told stories. So he reached out to him, and they put together the script, connecting all these separate stories into one. So if memory serves, I believe there's literally in Gene Shipper's writings, because he actually came out in Playboy. First time Scott Farkus saw existence was Scott Farkus and the Murderous Mariah, which was released in Playboy in 1967. I know this because somebody gave it to me. A fan gave it to me, which is very sweet. And the Murderous Mariah was a battling top. So back in the day, in the 1940s, they would have these wooden tops that they would wrap a piece of string around, and then they'd throw it and rip off the string at the same time, so it would hit the ground spinning, and you had to drop it into the circle, and then it would hit the other tops, because you would have a top, I have a top, and if I knocked your top out, I won, and if I won enough games, I won your top. So Scott Farkus and the Murderous Mariah was a story. The old man getting a leg lamp was a story. Wanting to get the BB gun was a story. Someone getting their tongue stuck to a pole was a story. Going to see Santa Claus was a story. Losing the Christmas turkey to the dogs and having to go to the Chinese restaurant, that's a story.
And it's all golden.
Together.
Yeah.
And he wove them with the threads of the characters and their desires. So, I mean, that's why I think that film works so well. It was brilliantly written, brilliantly directed. I think the casting worked out great. I don't say that to compliment myself. I was 13. I think my acting ability had very little to do with the success of that film. But the way, as a director myself now, putting the right cast in the project changes the process immensely. If I have a good actor but isn't right for the part and I have to make them right for the part, it feels like a force. If these people are all right there in it, then I kind of just have to turn on the camera and let them do their job. And that comes across on screen. To bring back my movie Restoration, a lot of what's been commented on in the reviews is not only the writing and the directorial stuff, but really the chemistry between the two lead actors and how they feel like they're in a real relationship. And they did that. Once I hired them, I sent them off to the mall to go shopping with each other like a couple does, and to hold hands and to dress each other so that they could build a relationship. And it comes off fantastically. And I learned that from Bob. You hire people for who they are innately, and you let them be that person in front of the camera. And I think that's the reason why Christmas Story succeeded so well. It's still amazing to this day to watch little kids sit down in front of a television, like 4, 5, 6 years old, and watch a movie that takes place in the 1940s, and they identify with it to such a degree that they don't get up, they don't get bored, they don't walk away, they don't look at their phones, they watch the whole freaking movie. And the movie's 7 times older than they are. So it's kind of amazing.
You mentioned going back to Restoration. How was the transition for you to go into directing? Was it difficult, or was it something you have passion for?
Both. I mean, it's difficult because you're constantly trying to do better than it is that you're able, and you have a passion and a vision to accomplish something that you have no guarantee it will be executed the way you hope. I'm not Fincher, so I can't tell you that it's going to come off fantastically. I know it's in my head, and I can talk to my team about how to put it together. But it's a constant struggle to try and take that mental vision and translate it through the process and end up with the final product looking like where you wanted it to go. So I do have the passion for it, because if the passion wasn't there, it's way too much work to do for free. But yeah, it's passion and it's process.
Did you have any...
Showing up is 90% of life, right?
Yeah.
See what happens. Show up, see what happens. If you don't show up, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly.
Get out there, take your hits, start throwing punches back. So that's what I did. And I had already directed short films and spec pilots, and so I got my feet wet in the process of running a team and editing the film and writing. So I got done that already since 2011. I've been doing this stuff, and so I felt ready. Of course, you're never ready enough, but then if you waited to be perfectly ready, you'd never get anything done. So,
did you have any directors that were influential to you? Like any?
Oh yeah, Spielberg was a big one. Spielberg was a big one. Fincher was a big one. Cameron Crowe was a big one. Those are my top three. Sam Raimi stuff is great. Sam Raimi's very, very stylized, so I stay away from the use of his techniques because it becomes too obvious, and sometimes it can come off sophomoric. There's a way that Sam Raimi can do a telephoto push that just looks perfect, and it lands like the camera move is tongue-in-cheek. It's still terrifying. Drag Me to Hell or any of the Evil Dead movies. It's wonderful stuff. I don't know how to do that yet, so I stay away from that. But Spielberg stuff, I stole every good idea I could. Fincher's framing, I stole every good idea I could. Lighting, that type of stuff. And then, we live in a world where we're bombarded with image, whether it's movies or magazines, and you have so much to draw upon. There's so much reference material that nothing, well, I don't want to say nothing is truly original anymore. I think things become original in smaller pieces. So, the world used to be solely working on a mechanical level. We build huge bridges, and these are the things, or we build huge buildings and giant monuments. These are the things that matter to us. And now where we live, we've done a bunch of that over through the lifetime of humanity. And now we're getting down to molecules. And we're looking at quantum theory and string theory. And we're trying to understand that there's a membrane between universes. We've gone from very, very big to getting super small. And the smaller and more concise we can be, that's where our originality lives. So I think as a film director, as a writer, there is so much that is constantly perceived by the audience that you can't pull away from adapting techniques that work. One doesn't plagiarize. One stands on the shoulders of giants. You can't not see Spielberg's work unless you live under a rock. But if you're a cinemaphile, you've seen his work. Once you see his work, it's going to give you ideas because you'll see what you like, you'll see what you don't like, and you'll fall in love with these concepts. The process is how to use them properly so that you're not plagiarizing, you're actually just elevating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Kind of like Brian De Palma would do with Alfred Hitchcock, enhance a lot of the ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm working on now and trying to develop my own, I was going to say technique and style, but the reality is you plan out your shots, you do your shot list, and you can storyboard if you like, depending upon how much money, time, and what the shot is. But the funny thing that happens is you get there, and the first thing I shot was called Experimental. And if you go to experimentalmovie.com, it's the short film that I did. And it won some awards, and that was cool. And I like it. And now I think it's a little too long and should be edited down, and I trimmed some stuff. But I don't want to create a revisionist history. It was who I was at the time. But there's some really cool shots in there. Really great shots in there. I'm very proud.
You mentioned huh?
Hey, hold on 2 seconds. I got to take that line. Hold on, bro.
Sure.
Hello?
Yeah.
There you are. Okay. Sorry, my phone's being weird. So to finish up what I was saying about experimental, you plan out your shots, and you have these ideas of what you're going to do, and then you get there, and you see some cool stuff. And you see something like, ooh, this would look great. Let's shoot it like this. And then, okay, what lens are we going to use? Are we going to go on a 35 and do wide? It's like, no, I don't want to do a 35. Let's do a 50 and track it alongside the wheelchair. So we're going to get the front of the wheelchair's wheel, and it's going down a hallway. That sounds stupid. I mean, it sounds boring, but it looks awesome. And it's a great edit point, and it creates a tension in the scene, and it gives you the sound.
Yeah.
And that becomes a character in the moment. And you didn't know that was going to be a thing that you wanted when you wrote the script. But when you saw it, and you had the opportunity, you got it. And I mean, you can plan out a lot, but you also have to plan for spontaneity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You had mentioned...
You get the shots you have to kill the story best way you can, and you do it so that you give yourself room to find the magic that's in the scene.
Yes.
And that's the funniest thing about directing is you and I could walk through the exact same location, and shooting the exact same scene, and we'd shoot it completely differently. And neither one is right or wrong.
No.
They're just different, and they're extensions of how we see the world. And that's the magical thing about the art form. It's so freaking subjective. But that being said, I unfortunately have to get off the phone because I have a bunch of work that I have to do. But it has been a pleasure speaking with you. And please, give me a call, or I'd love to hear your thoughts on restoration when you see the movie. And if you want to ask me some questions about that in the future, that'd be great. If you have any listeners who want to do a Q&A or something like that, that would be fun. They can call in and ask questions about how things were shot or executed. So that would be great.
Sure. I was going to ask you about Almost Famous, but because you mentioned Cameron Crowe, and you're part of that as well, right?
Yeah. But unfortunately, I am out of time, sir. I apologize. I've got another interview starting up in like 4 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe sometime in the future, I'll try to get you back on here.
Yeah. Well, watch the movie and let's do a Q&A so you people at your school who are in the film department can talk and ask some questions. Happy to educate and illuminate.
We can do that.
Great. All right.
Well, Zack Ward, it was a pleasure having you on here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. I look forward to talking again, Python.
Sure, absolutely. God bless you, man.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.